Hey there, so your child has been diagnosed with myopia or nearsightedness. So let's talk about what that means. So myopia is the most common and growing refractive error that's out there, but that's not to say that myopia is normal. So the simple definition of myopia means that you have trouble seeing things far away, but you can see things up close without glasses. Now, to know if you're myopic, you want to look at your prescription. So if you look under the first column that says sphere, you're going to see a number, and that number is going to have a plus or a minus in front of it. And if it has a minus in front of it, that means that you're myopic or nearsighted. Now, a side note, OD stands for right eye and OS stands for left eye. So the minus means that you're nearsighted, plus means that you're farsighted. And how big that number is determines how nearsighted you are. And so that number is going to be measured in diopters, and it goes in 0.25 steps. So in the eye care field, we'll often categorize myopia as low, moderate, or high myopia. Low myopia is considered myopia that's under -3 diopters. And oftentimes if you have it, your child might see like this in a classroom. Now, moderate myopia is from -3 to -6 diopters, and high myopia is over -6 diopters of myopia. And so normally when children are born, they are farsighted or hyperopic, and their prescription will typically be about +2 diopters. And as they grow and as their eyeball grows, their prescription is slowly going to change closer to 0 prescription. And that process is called emmetropitization. And so in some kids, their eye will continue to grow out of proportion to the optical components of the eye, and they will become myopic or nearsighted. So child myopia or nearsightedness is a growing issue in the world. Worldwide, the rate of myopia is increasing incredibly, and it's a real concern for the World Health Organization. So even though there's lots and lots of kids out there wearing glasses, being myopic or your child being nearsighted is not a normal condition. So why is it that your child's becoming nearsighted? And so we know a big factor in your child becoming myopic is genetic. So if one or both of the parents are myopic, there's a higher likelihood that the child might become myopic, but that's not guaranteed. But we also know that environment can play a big factor in your child. So we know that looking up close for long periods of time can increase the risk for developing nearsightedness, and we know that spending more time outdoors can reduce the likelihood of your child becoming nearsighted. So some of these factors you can control and some of them you can't. So the real question is, should you be really concerned? Is it really a big deal if your child has to wear glasses? So there's two things that can affect your child if they're nearsighted. So number one, if they have a higher prescription, they have trouble seeing things without glasses, and that makes life harder. And so the second thing is that kids that are nearsighted or myopic, more risk for eye conditions when they're an adult. So kids and adults that are nearsighted, it means that their eyeball is much larger than average. And what that means is all the tissue inside their eye is stretched and pulled more than other people. And that could put them at increased risk for developing conditions like retinal detachments, retinal tears, earlier cataracts, risk for glaucoma, and increased risk for a condition called myopic maculopathy. And a lot of these conditions may not develop or increase the risk until they are much, much older, like when they're in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. But if you can act now to reduce their risk for having those when they're an adult, you should probably act now. So first of all, you need to determine, are they at risk for that to go up higher and them becoming highly myopic? So there's a number of things that are going to contribute to that risk, including genetics and how much near time, how much screen time, how much time they spend outdoors. But one of the most important tools and one of the most important tests, in my opinion, that your child should have done with their myopic or nearsighted is to know their axial length. You should have your child's axial length, or the length of their eyeball, measured every single visit. And so you should track that growth of the eyeball to know if it's going up higher or not. If it's going up higher and putting them at higher risk for becoming more nearsighted. And so your eye doctor can do that test, and they can graph it, and in fact, they can graph it against the normal growth curves for other children in their same age group to tell you the risk of them becoming highly myopic when they are an adult. And so if you want to slow down the progression of myopia in your child, you want to look for an eye doctor that can measure the axial length and track that growth of the eyeball over time. So if you've determined that they are at higher risk, what can you do to slow down the progression? So we can't stop it and we can't reverse the growth of the eyeball, but we can definitely slow it down. There's 5 things that we can do to slow down the progression of nearsightedness in your child. First of all, there's myopia management spectacle lenses that are designed to slow down the progression of nearsightedness. There are also daily disposable soft contact lenses that are designed to be worn for young children as young as 5, 6 years old to slow down the progression of nearsightedness. You can also use something called orthokeratology, and that's using a contact lens that you sleep in at night, and then in the morning you take it out, and that can also slow down the progression of nearsightedness. You can also use low-dose atropine eye drops. Fifthly, you should look at lifestyle adaptations to slow down the progression of nearsightedness. And so one of the options you can use are myopia management spectacle lenses. Now there's a number of these lenses that are on the market that can be used to slow down the progression, and all of them slow down the progression by about 50%, which is a pretty big deal. Now most of them are high-tech lenses that use a particular technology in the peripheral part of the lens to focus things differently on the peripheral part of the retina. So if we have the eyeball, it has the cornea on the front, it has the iris, it has the lens, and then it has the retina. So normally we are concerned about the focusing of the image right at the back of the eye in the area called the macula. But traditional lenses, they don't focus the image on the peripheral part of the retina. They actually focus the image on a flat plane, so those images are focused behind the retina and not on the retina. Theory is that defocus in the peripheral part of the retina in traditional lenses might be a stimulus for the eye to continue to grow and become even more myopic or nearsighted. So these myopia management spectacle lenses actually focus the image in front of the peripheral retina to remove that stimulus for the eye to continue to grow. And they do a tremendous job to slow down the progression of myopia in the kids wearing these lenses. Now these lenses cost a little bit more, but what it's going to mean is you're going to have to change the lenses less often, and your child's not likely to get up into those really high levels of myopia where they're going to have to go with really high index lenses. The key is you need to act now when your child is starting to grow, and actually before they start to grow, because once they have become nearsighted, we can't reverse it. You can't go back in time, so you need to act now. So your child is myopic or nearsighted, you want to slow it down using daily disposable soft contact lenses. So there are a couple of different brands on the market that are designed to slow down the progression of nearsightedness in children that wear these lenses. And so these lenses are designed to be worn in young children as young as 5, 6, 7 years old, and you wear the lens every single day. They wear the lens during the day, and then they take it out at night and throw it away, and then they start with a new lens the next day. And the technology in these lenses is the same as the technology in spectacle lenses designed to slow down the progression of myopia. And so these daily disposable soft contact lenses are designed to put the image in the peripheral retina actually in focus in front of the retina to remove that stimulus for the eye to continue growing. And these daily disposable soft contact lenses that are designed for myopia management, they can actually really slow down the progression. They can slow it down by at least 50% in the children that are wearing them. And orthokeratology is a really, really cool high technology that actually does two things to the eye. So number one, it slows down the progression of nearsightedness, but number two, it actually makes it so your child actually doesn't need to wear glasses or contact lenses during the day. So the best analogy for orthokeratology, it's kind of like wearing braces for your eyes. So basically you wear a gas permeable contact lens at night, and that reshapes the surface of the cornea so the image is focused in the back of the eye. And then when your child takes out the contact lens in the morning, their cornea remains in that shape and the image is in focus. But it also slows down the progression of nearsightedness while your child is wearing it. So it's a 2-for-1 in this option. It's a fantastic option that's used a lot in Asia and more in North America and Europe. So just like braces and your retainer, these lenses will temporarily change the shape of the cornea. So after you stop wearing this, your cornea will go back to the normal shape, but your myopia won't go back to the normal amount that it would have been if you hadn't been using this. So this is a fantastic option that parents can use in young children. So what we know is that there's a drop that we commonly use in the eye care field that can slow down the progression of myopia, and it's called atropine. We have lots of studies going back 30, 40 years that show that atropine definitely can slow down the progression of nearsightedness in children. And so normally what we use atropine for in the eye care field is to do two things. One is to dilate the pupils, make the pupil really big so you can see, so you have a bigger opening looking into the eye. But it also freezes the focusing ability of your eye. And the normal concentration level of atropine used for that purpose is 1%. But what we have found through studies, if we use a low dose concentration of atropine of 0.05% atropine in children every evening, that can actually slow down the progression of nearsightedness in these children by at least 50%. So this is a fantastic option for children that don't wear glasses, or if you're wearing glasses or contact lenses, to slow down the progression of myopia. All right, so your child is myopic or nearsighted, and you want to look at options to try to slow down the progression of the nearsighted. So there's two things you want to consider. If your child is not quite yet myopic or has a very low amount of myopia right now, so one thing you want to do is make sure that your child has a lot of outdoor time. So what studies have shown is that kids that have 2 hours every day outdoors will have a less likelihood of developing myopia in the first place. And the second factor that's a big factor in developing nearsightedness is how much up close time that your child has. So what we know is that doing a lot of tasks up close for a long period of time can increase the risk of developing nearsightedness. Now, a lot of times screens get blamed for it, but it's not screens that the problem, it's how long you are looking at a screen. And the problem with screens is that they will hold our attention a lot longer than a book will. So you can look at a screen and watch YouTube videos, make sure you like and subscribe, for hours and hours, much longer than you will for reading a book. And all of us will have a tendency for our screens to get closer and closer, and that increased near time can develop more myopia. So if you're using a screen, you want to make sure the screen is out further. You can consider putting on the screen distance features that are on some of the new phones, but if you can, you want to do more of your screen time on computers, and better yet, on TVs. So I tell parents, whatever you can do on television, you want to do that. As much TV as possible, rather than using it on a handheld screen. So what I do for the children that I think are at risk for developing myopia, and those that I'm treating their myopia, I'm following them every 3 months. So what I'm doing on that visit is I'm measuring the prescription to see if that's changed, but more importantly, I'm measuring the axial length, because that's the most important measurement that we have to track the progression and if myopia is working. And the question is, how long does my child need to be on these myopia management treatments? And the answer is, we're not really sure, but the most important time for them to be on these myopia management treatment options is during the peak growing years. And so that's in the pre and the early teens. Now, once the child has gotten to the age where we think they've stopped most of their growing, we can slowly taper off and stop the myopia management options that we are using on them. So that often means is that your child is going to be using these options to their mid to late teens. But you can have peace of mind that you're doing some options that are going to help them long term to have a lower prescription and less risk for eye disease when they are older.